Welcome back to CriblCon 25. We're here at the CriblCast desk. We have one of my favorite people at Cribl, Sydnee Mayers, here on the show floor. Sydnee, welcome.
See ya.
We've seen a lot of videos from you with one of our field CTO, Ed Bailey, and you bring a lot of domain expertise on probably the most exciting trend of the decade, if not this millennium is generative AI. How is this changing how IT and security teams run analysis tasks, manage their data? It feels like there's definitely going to be this pre-AI and post-AI era of telemetry data management. How is this changing teams' day-to-day work?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing that we're seeing for a lot of these folks is getting to a level of optimization and efficiency that we've never seen before. Like we like to say the 10x engineer, the 10x IT ops person, but this really gives you the ability to do that, right? Like it not only automates tasks, it helps you break knowledge barriers, it helps you understand new information, it helps you do things with a really high level of quality and fidelity. Those are all things that were not really possible before without having a lot of domain knowledge or expertise about traditional AI. Generative AI is available to anyone, and it's incredible how democratized it's become. And now anyone can use it, IT, security, any other discipline. It's pretty amazing what we're able to see in the way that people are kind of being able to be more efficient and get more out of every single minute of the day.
Well, it's a bad analogy, but I remember when search came to applications. I mean, this is 20 years ago, and I always like to say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
And everything has search built in, like your email. I mean, I remember email when there was no search.
Yeah.
And every application you have, you can just search everywhere. And I really see AI as that. Like, in a couple of years, it'll be like, you don't remember AI not being baked into every one of your tools. With Cribl Copilot, how does that framework, when the engineers are working with very complex log data and they're trying to make sense of it, how does Copilot really help there, and how does Copilot Editor play a role there?
Yeah, great question. So I think the number one thing we see is kind of like you were describing, right? We have search inside of every product these days. Like you were saying, email didn't have search for a long time. Our goal with Copilot Editor is to do the same. We're not trying to build a whole separate AI product. We're trying to build AI into all the places a person might need an extra touch point to say, how do I map this data? What do I do with this information? What does this field even mean? Those are all questions people would open up multiple screens and say okay, well, let me go and search here, and now I found it, so let me come over here and try and deal with it. We're able to bring that to one screen. We're able to say, you have this window where you can come up and ask Copilot a question, and then be able to apply it directly in that window. Take it and say, okay, great, I now know how to fill out this field, or I now know how to change this parameter. We're revolutionizing the way people are interacting with Cribl and in general with data, right? There's lots of things you're not going to be an expert in. I know I'm not personally not a data expert, but I can become a data expert with Copilot, right? I have that extra help. It's kind of like the encyclopedia, for lack of a better term, of using Cribl. If I need to know new information, if I want to understand how to do something, Copilot is right there in the interface. I don't need to jump around and do my kind of 3-screen tango, we'll say, to get that done.
Technologies that make customers and engineers better, smarter, faster, harder, those are always pretty revolutionary.
Absolutely.
And this feels that to me. And when you think of hiring junior engineers, maybe fresh out of college, fresh out of high school even, the ability to bring them up to speed using the AI technology built into Cribl's products, I think that's going to be an underrated part of it, of getting people to be Cribl experts much faster. And there's a reason to know how the ins and outs of everything work. Good example I always use is there's a reason to understand HTML. Not near as many people code directly in HTML. I'm not saying it's not useful to know. You probably should know how some of this stuff works, but we have built tools to be faster at it. And this is where the AI being built into everything Cribl offers. There is no separate Cribl AI product. Cribl AI is built into everything Cribl does. It's pretty revolutionary. There's the old comic about when you have a new industry standard, you have 14 things, and okay, let's make one standard, so now we have 15 standards. And OCSF is, I'm pretty excited about the technology as a standard. How does some of the AI technology with automated schema transformation, how does that play to helping customers get their data into these industry formats?
Yeah, so the point that you made, right? I have 14 and now I have 15. We see that with every scene. Everyone has their own standard. It's really hard to get people to standardize. Everyone wants to be able to do something slightly different. But at the end of the day, the goal with those is to try and get data into a format that I can then go search on, build detections around, really understand, comprehend, get insights, analyze. However, you're not going to be an expert on all of those, right? Like I'm pretty good with Azure, not as good with AWS. That's just my own personal thing. I couldn't tell you for the life of me, like everything about AWS Security Lake. When we think about how customers try to transform data and put them into these platforms, they're often working from imperfect knowledge. They may be really good on one area and not so great on another area. They may understand one log type, like a user authentication log, but they don't know much about firewall logs. All of that creates a Pandora's box when I'm trying to transform data, get it into the right format. And that's really the middle ground, right? That's kind of the middle tier. What you really want is the data to be in that end destination for me to actually do something with it. So when you think about Copilot Editor as an example, we're trying to get people to their end destination as fast as possible. I want you to get that data into the format so you can do those security detections, you can manage your investigations, you can do analysis and understand. Anything else is kind of overhead for me to be able to get there. And so when we think about tools like this, it just takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, right? Anything you do manually, even when I type an email, I'm probably going to miss a key and there's going to be a wrong typed word. You think about that for terabytes of data, someone trying to convert something manually, it takes days, weeks at times. So if I think about trying to onboard new data sources, trying to support more teams, every time I bring in a new piece of data, I'm going to be in a tough spot to get it to where it needs to go. Our goal with Copilot Editor is take that overhead out of the way, right? Like I want you to get the most from your data as fast as possible, and I don't want you to have to do it manually. You don't have to know all the forms and the factors and the schemas and the this and the that. That's a lot of headache for something that is kind of just a middle of the road, middle ground step for me to actually get my data into the format that I want. And so I think what we're seeing for a lot of people, they don't need to be experts in everything. They can be an expert in their data, and they can be an expert in the analysis that they want to do, and we'll take care of the middle parts, make it a lot easier for them to not have to have the headache of what's OCSF, what's UDM, what's ECS.
Well, I read a book many years ago. It was called Range, and it was talking about like why being a generalist is really kind of a superpower. And I because you in IT and security, like it's hard to, like as you said, it's hard to just be like the Azure person, because oftentimes, like I mean, a lot of companies are multi-cloud. Like you're going to have to know how all these work. That's actually really hard. Every when you go deeper on all these, it's there's a lot of places you can get tripped up. You can do things better. And I look at this as, so if you think about the pre-Cribl days of trying to onboard sources manually, that's like horse and carriage.
Yeah.
Then you bring in Cribl's portfolio. That's like going to a V8, and then you bring in the AI functionality on top of that. That's like Fast and the Furious hitting the nitro button. And that's really the goal, is like every kind of step along the way, we're taking it, better, faster, stronger, and now we're dramatically accelerating that, because nobody thinks that telemetry management is going to get easier, less complex in the next 5 years.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so we have to build the technology to compensate for bringing customers up to speed, because again, as their environments get more complex, we've got to provide the tools to allow them to scale without having to go hire dozens and dozens of people and onboarding. They just can't. And in fact, we have such a challenge in the IT industry of hiring. There's not enough people out here that can do this.
Absolutely.
There's just the skill gap that we have, the knowledge gap, and so this is where we can do that. We talk about like AI generated queries, visualizations. Can you give us any examples? Do you have any examples of how customers have solved massive problems with that?
Yeah, so the number one thing I see from folks when they're trying to do an incident, right? Incidents got a lot of time pressure. I need to get an answer immediately. I'm working with lots of information. I may or may not know the answer. I may not even have a hunch, for goodness sake. When we think about people trying to do these investigations, they're querying data from all kinds of data sets, they're trying to make relationships, and usually they're doing this mentally and physically. Like I'm mentally trying to think about what data set I want to go tackle, and then I'm physically trying to write queries to make this happen. Great if you're an expert in queries, not so great if you're not an expert in queries, right? It's a lot of headache to try and figure that stuff out. And then also you're back to the 3-screen problem. Let me go over here to some documentation, try and figure out what the query is. Let me write it, let me get it wrong, let me try and do it again. By that point, like an incident could be significantly further along than it was when I first started the investigation. So some great examples we've seen with customers, we're seeing customers use this in 2 ways, 2 really important ways. The first, when I have a new person on the team and they're not a KQL expert or they're not an expert in whatever the query language is, it's great for them to be able to piece together, okay, I know what I want to go look for, but I don't know how to write it. That's great. We can take care of writing the query. You just tell us what you're looking for. And it's amazing how much confidence we see people get. I had one customer in particular, healthcare company. they were like, we have one person who knows KQL and I have 13 people I have to write all their queries for them, and I just don't have the time of day. When we introduced this feature, walked them through it, I mean, it was amazing. In weeks, they had people writing queries. We could see it in our telemetry data that more users were coming on and writing queries, and they were getting better. We were seeing less queries trying to get to the right answer. It wasn't 10 queries to get to my right answer, it was 3 queries to get to my right answer. So we're seeing a lot of just being able to jump that knowledge barrier for new folks. And then when we're talking about scenarios where I'm doing something like an incident investigation, we're seeing a lot of folks use that to explore their data and understand their data. So they'll use our natural language to KQL feature to be able to say, okay, I think I want to look for this type of thing in this data set. Maybe I'm looking for all the IP addresses or all the sources or something of that nature. And then they use that to drive, okay, the next query. We have a follow-up query feature that helps them even further to say, hey, have you thought about looking at these 3 things? So we're seeing people use these to drive these kind of chain together query investigations. And it's done 2 major things. 1, helped the folks who don't know the query language and really made them more comfortable. And 2, made them significantly faster at getting to their right answer, which is usually the thing that you care about the most in an investigation, right? Like, I need to get to that right answer. I need it to be correct. And then usually I need to turn around and share it. So we've taken all that goodness, put it into our notebooks, which makes it super easy to share that information with other people. But we're seeing customers in healthcare, financial services, various forms of banking, insurance, use this to be able to not only like bridge that gap on the skill barrier, but also make them significantly faster and more effective at being able to get to that right answer and get through their security investigations under pretty, tough time pressure.
I live in an area that logistics is a big part of the local economy, and if you're hiring drivers, you want to empower your drivers to get on the road quickly. If they can fix the truck, that's great. But if every driver is required to know how to fix their own truck, you're going to have a tougher time of getting them on the road and being productive. And I look at our making AI into every aspect of our products is getting more drivers on the road. Because if technology over time should be easier, I mean, you think about the computer I use today versus the one I used 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like they've gotten more powerful, but dramatically easier to use. And I can focus more on what I want to do rather than like understanding how it works. And it's not to say there's never a reason, and thank goodness that people do know how everything works, but like not everyone knows how to, on this computer, like repair permissions. Well, ultimately, you shouldn't have to know how to repair permissions. Like the technology should get to a place where you should, and that's what I really see with our AI strategy. It's giving that nitro boost every single engineer on your team, regardless if they're an expert in that language. So I'm really excited about the announcement today at CriblCon. I feel like our approach to AI is the most healthy in the industry. It's human in the loop. We want to know what's happening at all times, but we're turning every engineer, every security professional into a 10x productivity. Because the reality is, especially on the security side, the bad actors, the hackers, they're using this technology. So the only way that today's IT and security teams can match is to have that same level of technology on their end.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I have to say, something you highlighted just really quickly, it makes the folks who are new effective, right? Like it bridges that gap for them, but it makes the good excellent, right? I can be a really good developer. I can become an excellent developer with a little bit more help, right? And it's incredible how much we see those quantum leaps by using stuff like AI, but it's super important to keep that human in the loop because I want it to be about me at the end of the day, selfish as I am. I want to be able to say, I am that 10x developer. I am that 10x SOC analyst. It's not, this agent is the 10x SOC analyst. I am that 10x SOC analyst with the help of agents and tools built on top of it.
Absolutely. Sydnee, thanks for talking to us. Again, I'm really excited about your session. We're so thankful that you work at Cribl. You bring such domain expertise that very few people in the world have. So thank you very much. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll have tons of information at cribl.io/CriblCon. You can watch all the sessions on demand. You can watch the keynote. And thanks for watching.